June 22nd, 2019. The fourth weekend in June is historically significant to amateur radio operators across North America and around the world because it is the weekend of Field Day. Field Day is an annual communications exercise designed to simulate the conditions that radio operators would be faced with if they were operating in the aftermath of a natural disaster or other emergency that disrupted conventional communications infrastructure. There is an old saying in the ham radio world, when other systems fail, amateur radio just works. The premise behind Field Day is simple. Operators are tasked with establishing a temporary amateur radio station in a remote environment and make as many contacts within a 24-hour period as possible. To encourage participation, the US ARRL introduced a contest aspect. Points are awarded for each contact made, and the station with the most points is declared winner. There are a few rules, such as the requirement that off-grid power, such as solar panels, batteries, or generators, be used, but for the most part, it's a fairly straightforward contest. Victoria, BC's West Coast Amateur Radio Association has participated in the Field Day contest for a number of decades, and 2019 was no exception. This year, the club's operating a 2 alpha station, which means 2 primary transmitters which can be operational at any given time. Behind me, there's 2 HF stations, 1 single sideband and 1 alternating between CW or single sideband depending on the operators present. Also set up this year is a GOTA, or Get on the Air station, and a VHF 2-meter station to make more contacts. The GOTA, or Get on the Air station, is a special setup that members of the public can use to practice talking on the radio. Contacts made on this station don't count towards the total number of points, but it's a great way to experience HF amateur radio in a low-pressure environment. Because Field Day stations are spread so far apart, communications mostly takes place on the HF or shortwave amateur radio bands. HF radio signals bounce off the upper atmosphere to travel great distances, but they do require rather large antennas to function well. Wire antennas high up in the trees is an obvious solution, but how to hoist them high in the air? Well, it turns out there is a rather elastic solution for that. Jens is an arborist from the neighboring city of Duncan and has historically helped the club install antennas by launching ropes into the trees using his giant slingshot. The antennas are then pulled up high into the air for use. With the antennas erected and the radios set up, the only step left was to start operating, and by around noon the air was filled with the sounds of radios humming away. Of course, Field Day isn't just a purely technical exercise. Every year there's always a significant social aspect as well. And this year was particularly special because it was the 50th anniversary of the West Coast Amateur Radio Association. The club celebrated their 50th anniversary with a potluck supper and a special cake, which, by the way, was delicious. The club also had some special 50th anniversary pins manufactured, which were distributed to members at the event. Traditionally, the club would also hand out the Field Day Award at this dinner, but this was presented in the afternoon this year, as the recipient, Jens, needed to leave the event early. Overall, Field Day 2019 was a successful event. Everyone who turned out had a blast, and the club managed to make more than 300 contacts, including 1 overseas in Europe and several in Hawaii. Next year, the club is hoping to attract some more CW or Morse code operators to bump the numbers up even further. For iNet, this is Christopher reporting.